This is Matador News, and these are the headlines. Russia continues airstrikes against targets in Syria. Doctors Without Borders calls for an investigation of Saturday's bombing. And thousands of federal inmates to be released later this month.
Hello, and welcome to Matador News. I'm Justin Porras.
And I'm Abril Sanchez.
Russia has fired missiles more than 900 miles from Caspian Sea to strike targets in Syria. This is the second time Russia has invaded Turkish airspace in the last 2 days. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization Secretary General has confirmed Russian involvement in Turkey. Jens Stoltenberg also confirmed Russian ground troops are in Syria. United States officials fear that Russia is aiming to attack anti-Assad forces rather than ISIS. Tension between Turkey and Syria appears to be rising over the civil war, with Russia backing the Syrian president.
Doctors Without Borders is asking for a private investigation of Saturday's airstrikes against an Afghan hospital. 22 people died, including patients, volunteer doctors, and children. The organization is calling the bombings an attack on the Geneva Convention, which is a series of treaties addressing the treatment of civilians, prisoners, and some soldiers during war. The investigation would be conducted by the never-before-used International Humanitarian Commission. Jason Cohn, the executive director of Doctors Without Borders, calls the attack the worst in the organization's history.
Given the inconsistencies in the U.S. and Afghan accounts of what happened over recent days, we cannot rely only on internal military investigations by the U.S., NATO, and Afghan forces.
President Obama has called the Doctors Without Borders chief to apologize for the airstrike.
The FBI and authorities in Eastern European country of Moldova are working together to prevent potential smuggling of radioactive and nuclear material. Officials are concerned that smugglers will try to sell the dangerous material to extremist groups. Investigators believe much of the material comes from Russia. The most recent case was in February, when undercover agents were offered a large amount of radioactive. The Moldova region is an area where smugglers are willing to sell almost anything. It is unclear if the cases of Moldova indicate a more widespread nuclear smuggling operation.
The rain has ended, but South Carolina's Governor Nikki Haley says the next 36 to 48 hours are volatile. 11 dams in the state reportedly breached or completely failed. Another 35 are under close watch. Residents near the Columbia Dam have been told to evacuate. Officials are warning that the dam may break, releasing millions of gallons of water. Lieutenant Curtis Wilson of Richland County calls the county's Beaver Dam a major concern.
The dam had been stabilized, then unstabilized, then stabilized, and unstabilized. Again, you got to know that these crews have been working really hard, nonstop for since Sunday. The latest word that we have now, has been stabilized. We have put out the word early this morning, the Richland County Sheriff's Department, and also Richland County, period, that folks could evacuate, should evacuate, and go to higher ground and also get to shelter, AC floor if possible. Again, it's voluntary, but we wanted the citizens to have the opportunity to make that decision on what they wanted to do.
Officials are asking residents from other areas to donate water to Columbia residents who lack running water. So far, 15 people have died of weather-related causes.
6,000 federal inmates are set to be released by the end of this month. This is part of a plan to reduce overcrowding and harsh penalties on nonviolent drug dealers. About a third of inmates are being released are undocumented immigrants who will quickly be deported. The U.S. Sentencing Commission approved the reduction to jail terms last year. The Obama administration has been working on tackling what the president sees as a lack of fairness in the system. An additional 8,500 inmates will be eligible for release starting November.
Today, Governor Brown is in Los Angeles, signing legislation mandating that the state's electricity come from renewable sources. The law, known as SB 350, requires utilities to generate 50% of their electricity from renewable sources by 2030. California is already on target to generate at least a third of electricity from renewable sources. The signing marks an end to a year-long effort by Brown to push stricter measurements.
Governor Jerry Brown signed the FAIR Act bill yesterday. Matador News reporter Abril Preciado has the latest.
The bill is aimed to The bill is aimed at eliminating the wage gap between men and women in California. It's one of the toughest equal pay laws in the nation. Some CSUN students believe equal pay is setting us on the right direction. Here's what they had to say.
If you look at the majority of campus, the predominant population is women, so they're definitely going and getting the degrees. So why would you have them get the degrees when they know at the end of the day they're not going to be able to match with the males in their industry in the field?
It's definitely a step in the right direction. It's 2015. It's a new era. It's actually surprising that it hasn't happened yet.
It's a great achievement for the culture of women to have gained this much ground and to be able to succeed in any area that they're wanting to succeed in.
The new law will go on effect on January 1st. The new law also allows employees to file complaints alleging to any pay gaps in the workplace. Now back to April in the studio.
Thank you, Abril. Firefighters remain on scene after a fire burned 10 buildings and 2 homes in South Los Angeles. The fire started on the 5800 block of Harper Avenue. Nearly 200 firefighters from the county started battling the fire at 1 in the morning with the help of Los Angeles Fire Department. A firefighter was hospitalized with minor injuries, and 6 people were displaced from their homes.
Now let's go to Pia Jenkins-Henham with the latest in business news.
Thank you, Justin. Now let's take it over to the sundial with Matador News reporter Vanessa Cortez.
Thanks, Pia. I'm here with Professor Ken Chapman, an economics professor at CSUN. A survey done by you and your colleagues showed that more than $64,000 shows that CSUN graduates make $64,000 more than the average graduate annually. I have a few questions for you. In the report, you emphasize separating the earnings of college dropouts and graduates. What is the significance of that?
Okay, the idea we had was to keep track of everybody. We wanted some numbers that would tell students and their parents and what would happen if they went to CSUN and any of the things that might happen to you when you arrived. And the comparison of the people who dropped out to the people who actually graduated is valuable in and of itself, because both groups of people pass the requirements to get into Cal State Northridge. So it gives us sort of a measure of the value of the education. And one of the things we found is not only do the graduates do a lot better, but the amount they do better grows over time. It starts out at around $10,000 2 years later, and by 10 years afterwards is up around $15,000. Pretty encouraging news as long as you're graduating.
Okay, and another, what was the surprise from the findings of CSUN earnings?
Well, there were a lot of different surprises. I guess the first one is just knowing exactly what was happening. This is not a survey of alumni. What we did is we actually sort of matched using Social Security numbers with the state government records from unemployment insurance tax. So as long as people stayed in the state, we knew what they earned. We did find some interesting things about the differences in what industries people worked in, some of which were surprising to me. The number one biggest industry that CSUN students across campus go into for the graduates is educational services, followed by healthcare and social assistance and professional and scientific. Now, if you don't graduate, you also get industries, but retail trade tends to be closer to the top, so some big differences there.
Okay, now what is the significance of these results benefiting CSUN students?
Well, the big thing is to help you sort of plan to make decisions. If you want to see the whole report, what you can do is you can go to the Cal State Northridge webpage and institutional research. If you click on CSUN by the numbers and alumni earnings, you'll see a complete report of what's going on in your major and pretty much all the other majors on campus.
Well, thank you, Kenneth. Now let's go back to the studio with Pia for more news.
Thank you, Vanessa. American Apparel executives say they are determined to stay in America and in Los Angeles despite having filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. Chief Executive Paula Schneider said they have no intention of moving manufacturing operations to foreign soil. The company has always taken pride in its sweatshop-free wages and having things made in America. Lloyd Grief, chief executive of investment banking firm Grief & Co., believes that the refusal to move labor to other countries will be a mistake, and that if the company wants to survive a move is necessary. Let's toss it to Glenna Dixon with the latest in health.
Presidential candidate Hillary Clinton wants to shift the national health care debate and focus more on consumers' pocketbooks on litigating the 5-year-old Affordable Care Act. Clinton proposes a detailed program to crack down on rising drug prices and runaway medical bills. She would put a $250 monthly cap on how much consumers could be required to pay out of pocket for medications. Clinton would also allow consumers to buy pharmaceuticals abroad where they are often substantially cheaper. A new study shows weight loss surgery patients are more likely after surgery to attempt suicide and harm themselves. In the journal JAMA Surgery, Canadian researchers report that obese patients are more likely to suffer depression. But they also found a small percentage of patients land back in the hospital after their surgery. The study suggests patients have addictive behaviors contributing to obesity. The president of the American Society for Metabolic and Bariatric Surgery says removing the burden of weight through surgery is not enough to remove the burden of disease and mental illnesses within. Now let's see what Matador News reporter Pia Jenkins has for us in entertainment.
Thank you, Glenna. A member of the Southern LA rap group Brownside plans to turn himself in after a disturbing video released on social media prompted an LAPD investigation. The video was posted on Instagram and intended as a comeback for the 90s rap group. It was taken from a vehicle parked behind a police cruiser and features a handgun being flashed before an officer. Police launched an investigation after the video was perceived as a potential threat against police. However, rapper Cleaver says the handgun was nothing more than a prop. Police have issued a warrant for Cleaver's arrest, claiming he had a loaded firearm in the vehicle. The 2015 Nobel Prize for Chemistry has been awarded to 3 scientists for their mechanistic studies of DNA repair. Thomas Lindell, Paul Modric, and Aziz Sankar won the award after having mapped at a molecular level how cells repair damaged DNA.
And in every single cell in our body, we have genetic material that encodes for the correct information or damages to the DNA can have very serious consequences.
Their work will help with the development of new cancer treatments after providing fundamental information on how cells function. Now back to Glenna Dixon with sports.
The NFL owners are meeting in New York today and voted to extend their commitment to play international regular season games through 2025. The 2016 schedule of the international regular season game will be announced later this fall. Mexico and Germany are still widely seen as possible locations. 3 NFL games are being played this season at Wembley Stadium in London. Owners are also still considering 2 Los Angeles stadium proposals involving 3 teams. The St. Louis Rams plan to build a stadium and entertainment complex near the Forum in Inglewood. The San Diego Chargers and Oakland Raiders went in on a joint bid to build and share a stadium in Carson. That's all for sports. Now let's go back to Justin for some weather.
Southern California is known for perfect summer weather year-round. CSUN is finally getting a taste of fall weather with rain and cloud coverage this past week. But high temperatures are still around during the day. We will see the weather drop down to the 60s at night. CSUN students are ready for cooler weather, but temperatures are expected to increase this weekend. On Friday, it's going to be as hot as 102 degrees. Thank you for joining us at Matador News. I'm Justin Porras.
I'm Abril Sanchez.
I'm Pia Jenkins-Henham.
And I'm Glenna Dixon.